I'm sorry, Jane, but your role's been deemed redundant. The word redundant hits me like a fart in church, loud, offensive, and entirely unwelcome. Celia says it smoothly, like she practiced in the mirror between sips of her overpriced oat milk latte. She's sitting across from me in a sterile conference room that smells like lemon disinfectant and betrayal. To my left, HR is clutching a blue folder like it's a holy relic. To my right, the GM. Doug refuses to look up from his shoes, size 12 coward if I had to guess. I used to mentor Celia, held her hand through her first vendor implosion, taught her how to write a stakeholder update that didn't sound like it was drafted by a caffeinated squirrel. And now she's flanked by two human punctuation marks, informing me that my existence in this company is inconvenient. Effective immediately, she adds, eyes flicking to the script like it might bite her. I don't flinch. 14 years of service flushed down the drain like expired conference snacks. I take off my ID badge, slide it across the table. My laptop follows, sticky notes still on the trackpad, a half-drafted recovery plan still on the desktop. The GM finally coughs but still won't meet my eyes. Do you have any questions? HR asks. She's new. Probably hasn't figured out how this all really works yet, just trying to get through her checklist without sweating through her blouse. Just when I say sweetly, reaching into my purse. I pull out a slim folder, black leather, subtle gold lettering on the corner that says Colfax Integration Model. Celia notices, her nostrils twitch. I set the folder gently beside me and ask, does the severance package include any residual rights to IP I develop while on off hours? HR stutters. Celia frowns. Silence. I smile. No worries, just curious. Let's pause here for one hot second, because if you're still listening and wondering where this is going, go ahead and tap that like button and hit subscribe while you're at it. You wouldn't believe how many people binge these stories and forget to do that. It helps more than you know, keeps this whole twisted little operation running. All right, back to the part where my dignity gets curb stomped. I stand up, smooth out my skirt, and close the folder. I don't slam it. I don't throw a fit. That's not my style. Dignity is a dish best served cold, and I came here today packed in dry ice. The GM mumbles something that might be take care. HR offers a brittle thank you for your service, like I'm a garbage disposal she's retiring. I nod, pivot on one heel, and leave without another word. The hallway feels different on the way out. Too bright, too quiet. Few of the junior staff glance up but quickly look away. One of them, I think her name's Lisa, starts to stand like she might come hug me, then changes her mind and sits back down. No one says a word, no card, no cupcakes, not even a damn group email. 14 years, and I might as well have been an empty chair. I pass the break room. The fridge still has a sticky note I wrote last month warning people not to eat the HR director's yogurt. Guess that's my legacy. Outside, it's raining because of course it is. I don't rush, I don't cry. I just walk to my car, toss the badge into the glove box, and sit in silence for a full minute. Then I take out the real folder from my bag, the one with a different logo on the cover. The one no one in that beige little box knew existed. It's labeled Cascade Planning Phase 4. I drive home, make myself tea, and unlock a steel file box I've kept under my guest bed for 2 years. Inside, printed strategy maps, vendor performance charts, a burner phone, and a notebook filled with diagrams, initials, and post-it notes in 4 different colors. The phone vibrates. One message. Final signing tomorrow. We move at 6. I sip my tea. The last time Celia tried to impress me, she gave me a mug that said Boss Lady. Now she's about to learn what a real boss does, and I won't even have to raise my voice. The walk back through the office was like leaving a crime scene, except no one acknowledged the body. No farewell emails, no keep in touch. Post-its, not even one of those cringy office-wide will miss you cards where people fake affection with smiley faces and inside jokes you were never part of. Just fluorescent lights, the faint hum of someone microwaving a lean cuisine, and the sound of my heels tapping over years of invisible labor. Celia didn't come out of the conference room. Coward. The GM stayed glued to his seat like the chair would float him out of accountability. HR peeled off halfway down the hall like she suddenly remembered she left a candle burning in hell. So it was just me, my dignity, and a few folks pretending they didn't see me. I passed Greg from accounts. He gave me a half smile that screamed I'm glad it's not me. Jenna from marketing glanced up, did that awkward wince smirk, and swiveled back to her screen. I could hear her typing as I passed, probably slapping a Slack emoji on a meme instead of defending the woman who negotiated the brand rescue that saved her job last fall. The new receptionist, I think his name is Kyle, tilted his head like a confused golden retriever when I dropped my badge on the front desk. You quitting? He asked. I didn't even answer. Just walked out the front doors of Daxon Solutions like a ghost in sensible heels. It wasn't until I got home, kicked off the shoes, and hung up my coat in its usual spot that it hit me. 14 years, and the only people who noticed me leaving were the automatic glass doors. I poured myself tea, real tea, loose leaf, not that office sachet nonsense that tastes like betrayal and paper towels, and carried the mug to the guest room. Beneath the bed, behind a plastic bin of holiday decorations I haven't used since my divorce, was a locked steel file box. I pulled it out like I was cracking a safe in a heist movie, except the loot inside wasn't cash, it was leverage. A sticker on top read Cascade Planning. I popped the lock, peeled back the lid, and there it was, my arsenal. Neatly tabbed sections in colored folders, printouts with surgical notes, side-by-side comparisons of Daxon's operational flow versus what it should be if the people in charge had half a brain and a full spine. The first folder I opened was labeled Legacy Gaps Daxon. My handwriting, elegant cursive with the occasional middle finger flourish, lined each page. Notes from vendor calls, screenshots of emails no one thought I'd saved, risk assessments, contract clause loopholes. All the rot beneath the paint. Page 4 had a sticky note. Ask procurement why we're still using Sloan Freight, they're billing 3x average. I asked that 3 times in meetings. Celia said she'd circle back. She never did. Well, someone else is about to. I flipped through until I reached a hand-drawn diagram showing Daxon's org chart, then a parallel version with roles restructured for efficiency. My name was penciled in at the bottom in the first chart. In the second one, it sat at the top right. Not CEO, something quieter, more dangerous. Integration lead. The burner phone buzzed, one text, no name, just a number I'd memorized and kept separate from everything else. Final signing tomorrow, we move at 6 a.m. I took a breath, closed the notebook. Reached for my laptop, not the one I surrendered like a good little corporate ghost, but my personal one. The one with folders named after cities instead of projects, Colfax, Ashbury, Marlin, Cascade, each one a piece of the plan. Each one a building block of something bigger. Something surgical, something irreversible. I wasn't laid off, I was released. And the first thing a sharp blade does when it's pulled free, it cuts. It started at a logistics conference no one wanted to attend, one of those beige carpet hellscapes where every booth smells like burnt coffee and desperation, and every panel features some guy named Brad quoting Forbes like it's scripture. I was only there because Daxon forced us to maintain visibility, which is code for stand awkwardly next to a roll-up banner while pretending to care about palette optimization. I was nursing a migraine and a warm bottle of water when a woman in a slate gray blazer stepped up to our booth and asked, "Are you Jane Patterson?" I glanced at her badge. No company listed, just a first name, Alexis, and the kind of confidence that doesn't need a last name. "I am," I said slowly. "Can I help you?" She smiled. "Not here, but someone I work with might want to. Are you free for coffee after the panel on operational bottlenecks?" I blinked. "You actually attend those?" She didn't laugh, just said they like to see who pays attention to the numbers. That night at a hotel bar where the lighting was soft and the napkins were branded, I met the 2 quiet men who would change everything. One was British, the other silent, both in tailored suits that whispered old money and newer secrets. They called themselves advisors for a firm named Brightstone West. "We're building something," they said, "but we don't want figureheads. We want architects." I remember the way they watched me, not like I was someone to charm, but like I was a chessboard they were learning. They laid it out in plain terms. They were looking to quietly acquire controlling shares in 5 mid-tier logistics companies bleeding potential. Daxon was one of them. I didn't ask how they knew what I knew, I just listened. They wanted insights. Real ones, not glossy slide decks or surface-level buzzwords. They needed someone inside who could name the dysfunctions, flag the dead weight, and map the path forward. And they were willing to pay for it, handsomely. But I had a condition. No involvement until the ink is dry, I told them. My name doesn't enter a room until the buyout's complete and irreversible. And I want veto power on internal staffing across all acquired entities. They exchanged a glance. That's unusual. "So is offering me a seat at the table," I said. "I want to make sure the chairs aren't already filled with idiots." A week later, a courier delivered a package to my house. Inside, a non-disclosure agreement that read like a love letter to confidentiality, and a contract that gave me full strategic consulting rights, escalation power on all hiring decisions, and an option clause should I want to join the entity post-merger in an executive role of my choosing. They called me Sentinel One. Every month, I'd receive data packets, vendor reports, org charts, financial drips from companies in the crosshairs. I'd annotate, highlight, and send back revised integration models. They called it mapping. I called it proof. Proof that I was more than the reliable one who remembered people's birthdays and fixed supply chain blunders no one else even saw coming. At Daxon, they saw me as a seat warmer with a strong calendar game. But in Brightstone's shadow operation, I was the eye in the storm. I remember one packet from Marlin Logistics, a firm with 3 VPs and no shipping automation. I circled names in red. Dead wood, I noted. On another, this person billed $11,000 for miscellaneous client lunches in 1 quarter. Fire immediately, they did. Each time Brightstone cut, the firms bled less. Margins improved. Warehouses ran smoother. The chaos dimmed. I wasn't just observing, I was operating. And then came the Daxon file. It was surreal, annotating my own company like it was a lab rat. I flagged the exact inefficiencies I'd raised in meetings. One Celia noted and never revisited. I laid out 3 potential turnaround plans. One involved restructuring procurement under a new EVP role. Another outlined strategic attrition in marketing and reallocation of budget to R&D. The third, my favorite, included a full-blown audit of leadership competency. Guess whose name didn't pass the audit? For 18 months, I watched Daxon inch toward the cliff Brightstone was positioning beneath them. And when they started slipping, no one knew I had laid the gravel. I wasn't just preparing for the fall. I was designing the net. The conference room smelled like polished wood and generational wealth. Not the fake kind you spray onto office furniture to impress clients. No, this was the kind that seeps from real mahogany and lives in the silence between decisive voices. It was 6:02 a.m. We were 10 floors above a sleeping city in a boutique hotel where the staff didn't ask questions, and the espresso came without a price tag. The curtains were drawn, no nameplates on the table, no logos, just power and press suits, murmuring over stapled pages like they were final rites. Brightstone's lead counsel sat beside me, an older man with a beard like silver wire and fingers that moved like they'd never dropped a pen in their life. He adjusted his glasses, flipped to the last page of the agreement, and said simply, "All that's left is the signature." I could hear my pulse in my ears. Across from me sat 3 representatives from the last shell company Brightstone had used to secure control of Daxon. They didn't know me. I didn't want them to. I was just another name in the footnotes, exactly where I like to operate. The lead counsel passed the final document to the man at the head of the table. One stroke of pen. Daxon was no longer what Daxon thought it was. The signature was fluid, rehearsed, permanent. "Control has been transferred," he said, "effective immediately. No confetti, no champagne, just gravity." For a moment, I didn't breathe, not because I doubted the plan, but because this was the part they don't prepare you for. The moment when your entire career pivots not with a fight or a scream, but with a signature. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope. Thick cream paper, handwritten label in deep navy ink, recommended appointments. I handed it to Brightstone's counsel. He nodded without opening it because he already knew what was inside. Inside, a list of strategic placements to guide integration across the 5 acquired firms. Legal, logistics, finance, tech, each name cross-referenced by performance reviews and risk factors. Each appointment chosen not by tenure or title, but by utility. Third on that list? Jane L. Patterson, Executive Vice President, Integration Strategy, Daxon Solutions, effective upon merger ratification. It was embedded 3 pages in, not the headline, but not buried either. Anyone reading the list would see it. Anyone skimming would miss it. I liked it that way. The counsel tucked the envelope into his folio. "We'll forward these to the boards by mid-morning." I gave a small nod. My heart was still thumping, but my face didn't move. You learn early in corporate life that stillness is its own kind of power. "Would you like to review the internal rollout memo?" he asked. "No," I said. "You have it." He did. Every word had been vetted, rehearsed, crafted for impact. The email was timed for 9 a.m., queued to auto-send to every stakeholder. It would announce the completed merger, the incoming leadership changes, and a short blurb about Brightstone's new vision for operational excellence. That blurb included a line I'd written myself. "Miss Patterson brings over a decade of internal systems experience and strategic insight critical to post-merger success." No photos, no fluff, just facts and one subtle shot across the bow. Across the table, one of the shell company reps cleared his throat. "Will there be any issues with internal comms?" "No," the counsel said. "The current leadership team will receive confirmation shortly. Any objections fall under Clause 6.2, Post-Acquisition Authority. In other words, if they don't like it, they can scream into a locked inbox." By 7:15, the room was emptying. I remained seated, watching the sunlight crawl its way through the edges of the blackout curtains. I hadn't slept. Didn't need to. Adrenaline was enough. As the last pair of shoes clicked toward the elevator, the counsel turned to me. "You don't seem surprised." "I'm not," I said. "This was always the plan. Not everyone would have had the patience. Not everyone," I said, "was underestimated for 14 years straight." He smiled at that, just slightly, then left me alone with the silence. I sat a few minutes longer, letting the moment settle. I thought about Celia, about the GM, about the look on HR's face when I mentioned IP rights, about the 37 vendor reviews I flagged that no one read. They'd called me redundant. Now they were mine. Celia woke to 47 missed messages and one email titled urgent. "Who approved this?" She blinked, groggy from whatever boutique melatonin gummy she swore by, and squinted at her phone. The subject lines told the story before she even opened a damn thing. Press release, M, and a finalized new EVP appointment. Jane Patterson. She sat straight up in bed, heart hammering. Her husband mumbled something, but she was already scrambling out of the covers and launching her laptop like it held the antidote to a venom she hadn't realized she swallowed 18 hours ago. She opened the company homepage. There it was. A red banner splashed across the top of the site. Daxon Solutions joins Brightstone West portfolio integration underway. Beneath it, a glossy PDF download link. She clicked it, and that was the moment her stomach dropped like a busted freight elevator. Page 2, second paragraph. No preamble, no soft intro. Miss Jane Patterson, former Director of Operational Strategy, has been appointed Executive Vice President of Integration for the new entity. Miss Patterson brings 14 years of internal knowledge critical to post-merger synergy. No one had asked her to review it. No approval queue. No legal watermark. It had gone out to the board, investors, client partners, regional VPs, and based on the flood of congratulatory replies, everybody with a goddamn email address in the Daxon system. Celia's phone started buzzing again. This time a call. It was Doug, the GM. She stared at it, pulse climbing. She didn't answer. Meanwhile, across the city, I was enjoying a mimosa with a blood orange twist, listening to one of Brightstone's analysts explain a data visualization so unnecessarily complex it looped around to being elegant. I wasn't even pretending to care. I just nodded occasionally and let the sunlight hit my glass like I'd never heard the word redundant in my life. Someone slid their phone across the table toward me. The press release. Already reposted to LinkedIn by one of the advisory partners. Congratulations, EVP Patterson, the analyst said with a smirk. I didn't smile, not really. Just tilted my head and said, well, seems words out. My phone remained on silent. If Celia was smart, she'd realize quickly that trying to retract the release would not only backfire legally, it would make her look unstable. If she was dumb, well, there were clauses for that too. Back at Daxon HQ, the executive wing was unraveling. Celia had finally taken Doug's call. He'd barely managed to say, have you seen, before she cut in. Who authorized this? She hissed. Legal says it's valid, he replied, binding, and that we're expected to cooperate fully with the transition team starting today. What transition team? He paused. I'm looking at one of them now. They're in the conference room. Celia's jaw locked. Is Jane there? No, not yet. The word hung in the air like static before a lightning strike. I wasn't hiding. But I wasn't rushing either. I wanted it to simmer. Let them taste what real uncertainty feels like. Let them wonder how long the knife had been pressed against their reality without them noticing. Over brunch, I got a text from Brightstone's legal. Internal systems update complete. You're now listed in the executive directory. Full access granted. I sipped my mimosa and opened my inbox on a burner device. New signature line, Jane L. Patterson, Executive Vice President. Integration Strategy, Brightstone Daxon Holdings. I forwarded it to myself, printed it out, and folded the paper neatly into my purse. Just a keepsake. The irony wasn't lost on me that the same people who spent years ignoring my suggestions were now scrambling because my name appeared in one sentence they didn't get to edit. And as for Celia, she'd learn what I already knew. Real power doesn't come from titles. It comes from who writes the paragraph that announces them. Celia's voice cracked halfway through her third. Who authorized this? But no one dared to tell her that she was, in fact, shouting at a muted speakerphone. The room was stifling. Half a dozen senior managers packed in like guilty sardines, sweating under LED lighting and the weight of an unfolding coupe. Doug, the GM, stood frozen near the projector screen, still clutching a printed copy of the press release like it might morph into something else if he stared long enough. She's EVP now, he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. Jane, the name felt alien in his mouth like he'd just bitten down on a bolt. Legal had already dialed in. Their voice came through the speaker, calm, clinical, damning. The announcement was submitted through Brightstone's post-acquisition protocol. Under Clause 6.2 of the merger agreement, all appointments listed in the onboarding documentation are binding unless contested prior to ratification. But we never saw the onboarding documentation. Celia snapped. Correct, legal replied, because you weren't on the access list. A thick silence swallowed the room. Celia looked like someone had unplugged her spine. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her assistant, a mousy, overly enthusiastic 20-something who usually tried too hard to stay upbeat, leaned down and whispered something that made her flinch. She was seen getting off the investor elevator, the assistant murmured. 2 days ago. Black coat, visitor badge, but no record on the sign-in sheet. Celia blinked hard as if her brain was rejecting the information like spoiled milk. Why would she be on that elevator? Doug asked. No one answered because they already knew. The investor elevator was rarely used. No one without reason or permission stepped inside. If Jane had ridden it, she wasn't just visiting, she was moving. Celia turned back to the screen where Jane's name glared in bold Arial font under the words EVP of Integration. What does she even do now? She muttered. She integrates, someone said quietly. That broke the room for a second, an awkward cough, a snort stifled too late. Celia's glare killed the moment instantly. I want this pulled, she said sharply. Now. Wiped from the site, recalled from inboxes. If it hasn't hit PR Newswire yet, we can delay. It's already syndicated, legal interrupted. And attempting to retract it without a violation clause would put Daxon in breach. What violation clause? She barked. Unless you can prove malice or material misrepresentation, the voice replied, it stands. Doug rubbed his temples. Did anyone talk to Jane? She's not answering, Celia snapped. I tried calling her house, another exec offered sheepishly. Disconnected. She blocked us? Celia's voice went shrill again. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe Jane just didn't need them anymore. Maybe they weren't even part of the conversation now. That's what made it worse. Jane wasn't hiding. She was simply unreachable, and it wasn't just the press release that burned. By 10 a.m., the executive Slack channels lit up. The internal org chart had updated. Jane's name, photo, title, all displayed like it had been there all along. Under her new profile, a short bio read, brings deep operational continuity and strategic foresight essential to cross-company transformation. A fancy way of saying, she knows where all the bodies are buried, and now she's in charge of the graveyard. By noon, department heads were requesting clarification on reporting lines. Someone from finance asked if quarterly reviews were still happening. HR pinged Celia asking if Jane would now be sitting in on leadership development sessions. Celia didn't respond. She was staring at the bottom of her coffee cup like it held the meaning of life, but all it had was the taste of losing control. Her assistant returned, pale and fidgeting. I think there's more. The parking garage access list updated overnight. Jane's name is there. Reserved spot. Same level as yours. Celia didn't say anything. The only sound in the room was the slow, steady unraveling of a career. Jane hadn't come with a warning. No trumpet, no gavel. Just a press release, a title, and a quiet kind of power that made everyone realize she'd never actually left. She just stepped aside long enough to rearrange the table. And now, she had the seat at the head. 3 days of silence. 3 days where they thought maybe I'd let the chaos cool, or better yet, maybe I'd stay gone altogether. Some ghost in a press release, never to walk the halls again. But ghosts don't get escorted in by private security wearing Brightstone West pins. I arrived just before 9 a.m., walking through Daxon's front doors like I hadn't been escorted out a week earlier by a jittery HR rep and a GM who couldn't make eye contact. No badge, no clearance swipe. Just a simple nod from the new security lead, who held the door like he'd been briefed on exactly who I was. The lobby fell silent. The receptionist, Kyle, blinked like he'd seen a vision. I gave him the same polite nod I offered the VP of Supply Chain at last year's summit. Let him sit with that. Brightstone staff trailed behind me. 2 associates, 1 integration officer, and the same counsel who sat beside me during the signing. They didn't say a word as we moved through the building, just walked in sync like a shadow with a pulse. We passed the break room. Greg from accounts actually stood, said welcome back like he wasn't sure if he was greeting a VP or a vengeance goddess. I didn't stop to clarify. At 9:04, I entered the executive conference room. Celia was not there. She'd called in remote for the week. Interesting choice, considering her job now hinged on a very in-person discussion. I turned to the assistant on duty. Gather all department heads. 30 minutes. No exceptions. She nodded, eyes wide. No one asked why, they already knew. By 9:34, every department head was seated around the long glass table, murmuring nervously. Some tried smiling. I didn't return it. I stood at the head of the table, not sitting, not leaning, just standing, and opened the folder in front of me. The cover read, Daxon Organizational Transition Plan, Phase I. Good morning, I said. This won't take long. Silence. We are initiating a full review of strategic roles across all departments. That includes leadership, reporting structures, performance evaluations, and value mapping against Brightstone integration objectives. I didn't look at anyone in particular, but they all looked at me. This review is not ceremonial. It is not a rubber stamp. It is a restructuring. You'll receive individualized packets outlining our evaluation criteria. Any positions marked under review will require direct justification for retention. And yes, this includes Celia's. I let that hang. Someone in the back, a VP of something I didn't care to remember, shifted in his chair like he'd swallowed a tack. Your cooperation is expected, your transparency is required, and your loyalty from this point forward is no longer assumed. I closed the folder. That was the speech. No dramatic pauses, no raised voice, no cheap revenge monologue. I wasn't here for closure. I was here for compliance. You'll receive your packets by 3 p.m. Any questions can be directed to the transition officer. If you need clarification, reread the memo. If you still have questions after that, you're probably not going to like the answers. A few department heads opened their mouths, then closed them. One woman from finance, smart, sharp, always underutilized, gave the smallest of nods. She'd be staying. Dismissed, I said, and walked out before anyone could mistake my time for an open forum. As I passed by Celia's office, still untouched, still full of little motivational quote cards and faux plants, I noticed a printed org chart on her desk. My name sat at the top right, just beneath the CEO placeholder slot Brightstone had yet to fill. I circled it with a red pen and left it face up. Clarity is kindness. On my way back to the new office Brightstone assigned me, corner view, 2 floors up from the old one, I passed Jenna from marketing. She was holding a clipboard, trying not to stare. Jane, she said. I paused. Yes, I just wanted to say congratulations. We didn't know. I smiled, but not in the way that says thank you. Just the kind that says now you do. Then I walked on. No gloating, no smirk, just a woman doing her job, and this time, everyone was watching. By 11:03 the next morning, Celia was on a Zoom call she hadn't scheduled, staring down the barrel of consequences dressed in tailored professionalism. The invite came through Brightstone's legal team. Subject line, transition resolution finalization required. No preamble, no agenda. She clicked the link, already sweating. On the other side of the screen sat me, Jane Patterson, EVP of Integration, flanked by two Brightstone advisors and a silent HR representative who looked like she hadn't slept since the press release hit. Celia tried to start strong. I'm not sure what this is about, but I raised a hand. Calm, ice, no performance. This won't take long, I said. You're here to choose. Her eyes narrowed. Choose what? A Brightstone rep slid a PDF across the shared screen like a guillotine blade. Option 1, accept an immediate demotion to Director of Special Projects. No team, no strategic authority, reporting directly to me. 1-year probationary review. Option 2, voluntary separation. Enhanced exit package. Full NDA, no exceptions, no rewrites. Celia stared. You're serious. As a merger clause, I replied. HR cleared her throat. We recommend you take some time, no need, I cut in. She has until end of day, then the default triggers. Default, Celia snapped. The Brightstone advisor leaned forward, tone velvet smooth. Termination. Standard payout, no enhancements, no references. Celia's lips parted in disbelief. You're firing me? I'm giving you a decision, I said, cool as static. What happens after that is entirely procedural. Doug, the GM, was also on the call, camera on, mic muted. He hadn't spoken once, just stared like he'd been underwater too long and couldn't remember how to swim. Celia tried to pivot. This is personal. It's operational, I corrected. Your performance didn't qualify for continuity under the new structure. The audit confirms that. The loss projections from misallocated vendor contracts alone, I turned my laptop slightly, letting the corner of a file on my desktop peek into frame. 14Y, what they missed inside, everything, every ignored suggestion, every flagged discrepancy, every cost center bled dry under innovative initiatives that Celia launched with branding slogans and no follow-through. Her name was on half of them. Mine was on every red ink correction. You've been compiling a dossier? She asked, voice quieter now. I've been doing my job, I said, for 14 years. Her hands curled into fists, so this is revenge. No, I said, leaning back. Revenge is emotional. This is math. HR looked nauseous. Doug blinked like he'd just realized his silence might be career-ending. Celia's screen flickered slightly. Somewhere in the background, her dog barked. Real life trying to barge in through a collapsing career. She tried a different angle. The board won't, the board already did, I said. They ratified the restructuring package this morning. You're the last one holding up final execution. I could see it, the calculations behind her eyes. Reputation, options, whisper of dignity already withering under the weight of reality. You'll never rebuild the team without me, she said flatly. I didn't even blink. Redundancy can be contagious, Celia. Be careful where you stand. She didn't respond, just logged off. No dramatic slam, no last word, just gone. 10 minutes later, an email from her attorney arrived. Subject, separation option be accepted. Attached, a signed NDA, timestamped and scanned. HR exhaled so hard I thought she might pass out. Doug left the meeting without saying a word. I stayed, finished my coffee, then reopened the 14Y folder and added one last note, strategic risk eliminated. Then I closed the file, shut my laptop, and walked into the office I earned, where the doors opened when I approached, and no one dared look away. Celia hit send on the email she'd spent 45 minutes rewriting, polishing, and gutting for tone. Her final act of control, a passive-aggressive masterpiece disguised as grace. It has been an honor to serve Daxon through a time of transformation. While I did not anticipate this transition, I trust that the company will continue its journey with integrity. I look forward to new opportunities, and I leave knowing I gave it my all. She hovered over the to field, all staff at Daxon, clicked send. Nothing. She clicked again. Error, you do not have permission to perform this action. She blinked, tried opening Slack, logged out. Tried accessing the shared drive, denied. Tried forwarding her contacts, server timeout. Tried calling IT, voicemail. Then finally, she tried opening her laptop's webcam just to check her reflection before she walked out. It was black, not off, disabled. Celia wasn't leaving Daxon. She'd already been erased from it. Her final act wasn't a curtain call. It was a locked stage, lights off, and no one in the audience. At 10 o'clock a.m. sharp, the board convened in the executive conference room. Real wood table. Glass wall overlooking a skyline the company used to brag about. They waited quietly. Some checked watches. A few whispered. Then I walked in. No fanfare. No clearing of throats, just the sound of my heels on tile and a stack of folders under my arm. I walked straight to the head of the table, not where I used to sit during support roles, not the side chair they used to assign me to keep minutes. No, this time the placard said Jane L. Patterson, EVP Integration Strategy, and I sat, without asking, without waiting. The chair was warm, sunlit, and built for people who didn't need to be told they belonged. The general counsel nodded at me. Shall we begin? I asked. A few surprised glances, a few approving ones, no objections. I scanned the room once. Slowly. Thoroughly, Celia's chair sat empty, hollow memory in leather upholstery. No one dared move into it. One of the board members, Harrington, old school finance, polite to a fault, cleared his throat and asked, should we delay a few minutes? For Miss Luz, I met his eyes. She won't be joining us, I said. No explanation, just finality. I slid the first folder open. Charts, projected synergies, revised leadership matrix. Phase 2 of the post-merger rollout. Every line reviewed, every name weighed. I read through the milestones like they were weather reports, cold fronts of accountability sweeping across legacy comfort zones. Not one person interrupted. There was no gloating in my voice, no revenge in my tone. This wasn't a reckoning. This was a reset. Vendor consolidation will begin next quarter, I said. We'll identify non-performing assets and personnel. Redundancy audits are already in motion. The word hung in the air like perfume overwrought. Redundancy. I finally allowed myself one glance toward Celia's chair, the void she left. And then I said it, flat, icy. A surgical strike wrapped in silk, redundant? No, I was just reallocating. Then I turned the page and the room leaned forward. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.